Hi everyone, welcome to Our Two Cents. I'm your host, Clinton Smith, and I'm also the CEO of GCES. I'm here with our president and financial advisor, Galen Bargerstock. Galen, are you having another good day?
It's a great day again.
Yeah, I always figured.
Yep,
yeah.
I always try.
Yeah, well, you know, whenever we come out to record these episodes, we kind of have to be on top of our game. We have to be in a good mood. So it's definitely important that we are having a good day when we come to record these.
Exactly.
Yeah. So today we're going to be talking about don't cheat yourself. This is something that we thought about this morning, that a lot of times people have to be in a certain mindset to do things in their life. For example, when someone goes and does a TV show and they see how fat they are on episode 1. You can look back and see we have lost a lot of weight, and we've been in the mindset to lose weight since we saw season 1, episode 1.
Yeah.
So go back and look, we were chubbier.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and it's a pretty vain goal, but it's still a goal, you know?
Yeah.
You know, you want to make sure you get the life to its fullest.
Yeah, but what the whole point is, people have to really be in a mindset to make something happen. And a lot of people, I think, have, like, there are two types of people. Everyone always says this. You're either a saver or you're a spender.
Correct.
Yeah, and what do you consider yourself to be?
I am a saver, and you are 100% a spender.
I think that we are both spenders.
No.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I will spend, and I will admit that when I do spend, I will probably go a little overboard, but the times in between my purchases are a lot longer than your purchases.
Yeah, so we want to talk about those differences and really how, in order to have a successful financial plan, you kind of have to have two mindsets. We don't want you to cheat yourself. So the title of this episode is Don't Cheat Yourself, a Bipolar Approach to Financial Success, because you really have to think about it in two different ways. Yeah. And we're going to get into that today. So we want to talk about money management and how people manage their money on a day-to-day basis, because really you have to have this mindset. You're either going to be saving or you're going to be wanting to be spending. And a lot of times we go through life not knowing which way is up or which way is down when it comes to saving and spending money.
Correct. You know, you have to, you're going to know personally what your income level is coming in, and you're going to know what you can afford to spend each month to stay right on track. And, you know, unfortunately, you know, that $7 coffee might be a little bit too expensive, and if you didn't have that and made it at home, you might be able to put a little bit more into that budget, and not the budget, but, you know, other things inside of it.
Yeah, and that's really our first thing that we think that you have to start looking into is, if you haven't done it yet, you should create a budget. This is the best way to understand where your money goes every month. You can understand, hey, I just spent $300 last month at Starbucks. I really should probably do that less and maybe try to put in enough money that I'm at least getting like the matching money from my employer. Because if you don't think about it, a $5 coffee every day doesn't seem like that much, but whenever you do it for 365 days a year, that can really have an impact on the amount of money you're going to see in your pocket.
100%. You know, I remember when you were addicted to the game Clash of Clans, and you were spending and buying stuff on Clash of Clans, and then if you added up all of that, how much that game would have cost you, is that something that should have been inside of the budget? So you just have to look at that. Yeah.
He just called me out on television. By the way, my Clash of Clan village, I haven't checked on it in several years. I hope it's okay, especially after how much money I spent to get it to where it is.
Yeah.
So, you know, I know that you've sat down with tons of people and they're like, hey, and you ask them, how much do you spend on groceries?
Yeah.
And it is all over the page of what people think that they actually spend on groceries. So tell me, how does that work?
It's obscene sometimes. I mean, I love when people are honest. Like, I will believe you if you tell me that you're spending a lot of money on groceries. You know, a lot of people will tell me, oh, $100. I'm like, what are you eating? Like chiclets? Like, there's no way that you're spending $100 on groceries. In today's times, especially, everything's expensive. Eggs are through the roof, you know, so.
I don't even think that they sell chiclets anymore, so you just showed your age.
Maybe.
So funny. What movie was that where he had them in his teeth? Was that Dumb and Dumber?
I don't remember.
It was a Jim Carrey movie or something. Yeah. That's funny. Chiclets, if you're watching, we will accept a sponsorship.
Right.
So, you know, we talked about people that have been retiring and paying life insurance they didn't even know that they had. This is one of the moments whenever we were first starting out, you know, we did a seminar and it was at a Haas's in Western Pennsylvania. And while we were sitting there, everyone was paying attention to what we were doing, but there was one guy at the very back of the room that was just sitting there with his book, that was just wanting us to fill out his retirement book. so that he could retire. When we sat down with him, we noticed that he was paying $300 and some bi-weekly for Fegley life insurance. So over $600 a month this guy was spending on a life insurance policy that he didn't even know that he had, first of all.
True.
Didn't even know that he was spending that much money out of every paycheck, because federal employees, their life insurance goes up at 50, it goes up at 55, it goes up at 60. 65, so on and so forth, and he was 62. Yep. So we could tell that he had been paying $600 a month for 2 years, works out to over $16,000 that he could have put into his pocket or into his retirement.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, Fegley in the federal government is my biggest pet peeve, and I hate to top your story, but I just last week ran into somebody that was a civil service employee, and they were paying $700 and something a paycheck. So they were paying almost $1,500 a month for life insurance. They were civil service, so they didn't have a TSP. They thought they were all taken care of. Again, they didn't know they had that kind of coverage or what it was, and he ultimately was canceling it when he was retiring. So he was paying $1,500 a month almost. For what?
Yeah, for nothing. Because also, too, everyone, whenever they retire, they have to cancel it?
You don't have to cancel it. I mean, you can keep the group coverage for the federal employees.
But for $700 a month, I don't think you'd want to.
No, it goes up and doubles in price every 5 years, so it makes it so you don't need to keep, you don't want to keep it. Any other insurance company in the nation would beat their prices from the ages of 50 to 55. So that's the sweet spot to address it, but they don't educate them.
Yeah. So if you're watching and you're a federal employee and you're about to turn 50, 55, or 60, take a look at your paycheck. This is super important. It is really easy to look at the deductions on the paycheck that they give you every 2 weeks that lists your deductions on there. And I even know, because I've listened to you do so many reviews, you want to look for a deduction line that starts with IN, and then it'll have a number and then a letter.
And then a number.
And then a number.
Yeah.
And that whole thing, the letter, number, everything, it'll actually tell you what you're paying for in Fegley.
Yeah.
The IN stands for insurance. The first number stands for the age bracket.
Correct.
The second one stands for the package, and the last one is the family multiplier.
Yeah.
Look at me go. I could do this.
Yeah, you could.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Nah, I'm okay. So guys, we're just going over today, talking about don't cheat yourself and talking about the mindset that you have to have whenever you're looking at your finances and your day-to-day spending, because being foolish with your money can literally take years off of your retirement, whether it's the ability for you to retire at the time that you want or to have money in retirement as long as you need it. We're going to be back in just a moment. If you have any questions, feel free to call the number on the screen. You can set up, it's free for you to have a financial analysis with one of our financial advisors. All you have to do is give us a call. We'll see you in just a moment. To me, a successful retirement isn't measured by money or amount of dollars that people have. We measure it more on happiness.
If you haven't started your retirement journey, it's good to actually just take the first step. You know, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to commit to anything if you don't want to, but just taking the first step of reaching out and finding out what you have and then going from there. You have to know what you have to know where you're going.
Start it sooner rather than later is probably the biggest thing that I would say to people. A lot of people want to wait until they're right at the edge of retirement, and there's not a lot that we can do for a client whenever you want to retire in 30 days. 5 to 10 years before retirement is a lot better. We can do a lot more for people.
The best advice that I can always give somebody is just take the first step and, reach out and ask questions. You're not going to know what to do or what to expect until you ask the questions, and it's non-judgment at our office, so ask away.
As people, we strive for better, from a better house to a better career to a better life for our kids. But when it comes to your retirement, what does better mean to you? More income, a flexible lifestyle, better solutions? A better retirement begins with a plan. To get your complimentary financial analysis, call the number you see here. Your retirement isn't going to plan itself, and this is your opportunity to plan better.
Everybody, welcome back to Our Two Cents. We're talking about financial topics as they relate to you. I'm here with Galen Bargerstock, our president and financial advisor. And today we're talking about don't cheat yourself, how you need to have a bipolar approach to spending money and your finances for financial success. It's kind of a weird way to put it. I will give us that. But it's really, you have to think about saving money on your day-to-day basis. And the whole point we're trying to get here is that you have to have that money saving mindset during the day. But sometimes those people also have the mindset of being super conservative with the way that they actually invest their money. So federal employees, we have seen this before, and I know that you can explain, you know, we go to Massachusetts, Connecticut. A lot of people there have been a lot more aggressive with the way that they have allocated their funds inside of the thrift savings plan. It's the same thing that you could do inside of a 401k, right? How much risk you want to actually have.
Correct. Yeah, you're going to elect the risk essentially that you're going to do inside of your investments. But you know, the thing with federal employees and specifically, they defaulted into government bonds at the very beginning of their career, most of them, and some of them didn't even put in the matching money because they didn't know there was matching money. But when you're talking about a bipolar approach, if you are super, super conservative and cheap, essentially, which is completely fine in life, and then also on your investments, you are conservative as well, or we'll call it cheap, and you're in the G fund, you're not putting any of that risk inside of the investments. And if you plan on working for 30 years, everything is based on that time horizon on how long you're going to be in those funds to how much money you could make. So if you're cheap inside of your, or conservative, say, inside of your investments, you're actually cheating yourself out of a lot of money that you could have had, because if you're the one funding money into that, putting in 20%, you could just put in 5 and play the market and have a better return than putting in all of that money. So it's just a different outlook on everything.
And I mean, this is pretty, we have definite proof that people that are more aggressive on their investments while they're working have a lot more money when they retire. And you have to understand, we're talking about mail carriers, letter carriers, rural carriers that have the same position. They make the same amount of money. It doesn't matter if you're in Ohio or you're in Connecticut. They are making the same amount, pretty much. It's the same position. But we can tell that the more conservative areas, Ohio, West Virginia, those people also are retiring with, I would say, on average, less than $200,000. Right?
They're retiring more than $200,000 now. That may be 5 or 6 years ago. The market's been kind, for a while. It's just up and down right now.
Yeah.
So TSPs are larger, but you're correct. There are a lot more people that are conservative in more rural areas than there are in metropolitan cities.
But the point I'm trying to get to is the amount of money they have when they retire. The conservative person versus the person who was more aggressive their entire career. How much more money do you think that other person would have?
I mean, it's hard to say on average, a lot more. I can't give you a specific number,
Just
but
guess.
Statistics are going to tell you. I can't just guess. This
like
is going to go through. This is going to go through compliance. I can't just guess.
100,000? Like,
no, I can't even
could it be 100,000 or more?
It could definitely be $100,000 or more. And why I can't tell you what it is, because your risk tolerance depends on what you go into inside of that account. So if you have the risk up the whole way, those people are going to have more money than, statistically speaking, than anybody that was in the lower risk funds, the higher risk. So if you're mid-risk, you're going to have more. But, the idea behind it is just to now take control today. And now that you understand that you could make money instead of put your own money into it, let your money make money for itself in the market, that's where it's at, and you shouldn't be cheap.
Yeah. So I know we touched on this a little bit earlier where we talked about going over your pay stub and looking at your pay stub before we went to break. One of the things that we definitely recommend is whenever you sit down with Galen, that's really one of the first things that you're going to do with someone is sit down and go over their pay stub with them, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the pay stub, no matter where you work, that's going to tell me where your money's going. If you have something allotted out into something else, it's going to tell me how much money you're putting into your investments from your employer, and then you would give me your statements from the employer plan, and I'd take a look at that. I'm not an advisor inside of the plan. I can just tell you where you are, and you'd have to elect inside. But, generally speaking, the pay stub has it all. And I can tell within the first probably 5 minutes, what needs to be done based on what I see.
Yeah. So guys, we definitely want to stress that, whenever you're thinking about your finances, you want to be cheap on your day-to-day spending, but be aggressive whenever you're going towards retirement with the way that you're actually investing your money inside of the thrift savings plan or a 401k or anything.
Yeah,
and obviously you need a risk assessment and everything like that.
You do. I mean, everything at the end of the day is all based on your specific risk tolerance. And when we say about bipolar finance, this is actually bipolar, what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
You want to be cheap, but you want to be aggressive. So you can still be cheap, or conservative and just put in 5% and not put in a lot of money, but you really need to just take a look at it, what you're playing in there.
So it is great to be financially conservative during the day, but you want your investments working at night, right? So that's kind of the way we're going to put it. Tell me about a risk assessment. Like whenever you sit down with someone, what kind of questions is it that you ask someone for their risk?
Oh, so I mean, there's so much to take into consideration. I'm going to figure out what your net worth is. I'm going to figure out based, your age. Your age is very important. Time horizon, when you actually plan to start withdrawing from that, because just because you're retiring, you might not want to still take money out for another 10 years. So, that's, part of the stuff. How much you
When you say time horizon, you're meaning how much time until you actually have to retire?
No, till they want to do a withdrawal is what when I do a risk tolerance, I'm looking for a withdrawal date, not for a retirement date.
And it's all, I'm assuming, probably, and I just saw Levi, hi Levi, the other day talking to his client where he asked questions like, what would bother you more, losing money or not making gains? Is that the risk assessment?
Correct, yeah. Are you more concerned about losing or making money? And that helps guide if you're conservative, because if your biggest concern is, I don't want to lose any money, well, now you're leaning more towards the conservative aspect, whereas if you want to, make money, you have to ride it high in order to do that, to achieve it.
And a lot of this is all a personal preference. I mean, we talked about it earlier. There are savers like me, and then there are spenders like Galen.
No, other way around.
I still don't agree with that, but you know what? Here we are.
Yeah.
Guys, there's a number on the screen, 888-391-3465. You can call and set yourself up with a free financial analysis. We do appointments in person. We do it over the phone. We can do it on Zoom if you're comfortable with that. But we really stress the importance of meeting with a financial advisor to understand all of the things that you have for your finances. It literally can all be done in an hour and a half. So give a call to the number on the screen. It will take you 5 minutes to set up your appointment. And we are probably usually booked out about a month and a half to a month. So you definitely want to do it as quick as you possibly can, because the longer you wait, the worse things are going to get.
For sure.
Yeah. Guys, we'll be back in just a moment. We're going to take a quick break.
Everything kind of fell into my lap. I'd like to say that this job actually picked me. I didn't pick it. I answered a job ad off Craigslist, and one thing led to another, and I found myself doing retirement. I was going to school in New York City. After that, I did join the military. Still didn't really know what I wanted to do. When I got out of the military, I started working for a company called RX America, doing Medicare Part D prescription drug plans. That led me into a marketing position with insurance, where I started to learn a little bit about the business. When I started, I just noticed that a lot of people needed help, and I liked the aspect of, helping them. And it seemed if I didn't know the answer to a question at first, I knew the outlet and the sources to find out the answers, so I could become that person. And I tell everybody, the employees of the federal government actually taught me how to become a financial advisor, because the questions they asked me built who I am today. The most rewarding part is definitely helping people. My human nature is to be kind and help people. That's just the way I'm built. So I get joy out of knowing that I've helped people. And you can tell by the look on somebody's face if they didn't know what was going on when you walked in their home, and then you leave and they're all smiles and happy and relaxed, and you understand that they understand what's going on now. I feel like I'm leaving somebody with a little bit more hope and definitely a plan.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our 2 cents. I'm Clinton Smith. I'm here with Galen Bargerstock, our financial advisor and president at GCES. right? And I just want to touch on that. GCES originally stood for Government and Civil Employee Services. We love federal employees. If you know a federal employee, we know the ins and outs of their benefits, their retirement, everything like that. Although we do work with everyone, that's why we changed our name a few years ago to GCES, which also we're the #1 rated financial advisor in our town.
In our area, yeah. We sure are.
Best of Indiana County. Whoop, whoop. So, today we are talking about a bipolar approach to finances and financial success. You don't want to cheat yourself. And this is something, it's all a personal preference.
Yeah.
Just like some people like their coffee some way, some people like to spend their money, some people like to save. But you don't want to have that mindset both on your day-to-day spending and the way that you are investing your money while you're working.
Correct. I think the easiest way, and people can relate to this, and you can't expect to have, millions of dollars at retirement if you are, paycheck to paycheck, not making it because you're spending money on all of this other things. You have to be realistic and get into reality a little bit and create that plan for yourself that's appropriate.
Yeah. The way I really look at it, just from doing payroll with our company is that, if you're only saving $100 a month, how long do you think you're going to be able to live in retirement?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You have only a certain amount of months to get there. Yeah. And I don't think people really think long term whenever they are thinking about their money sometimes.
No, and that's why, you have to think of everything in the masses. That's why we have Medicare. That's why we have Social Security, because not everybody is super disciplined on how to save their money. It's just a fact. So programs like that are very important because there is lack of discipline. But if you have discipline yourself, you can take those programs that we already have, and then you can make them really sing and have the retirement that you want and make it a little bit better.
Yeah. I want to talk about some other ways that people cheat themselves whenever they are thinking and planning for their retirement and their future. Okay. Right? So our first one on the list is comparing yourself to your friends. I mean, we also learned this in high school that you probably shouldn't compare yourself to your friends, but people still end up doing it. We work with a lot of postal employees. Yeah. And I know of so many postal employees and post offices where we go into them and they're like, oh, Scott that works here, who's a letter carrier, he's the one that handles all of our stuff.
Yeah.
And helps us do our retirement. And we have seen that a lot, so many times.
Yeah. I actually, have met a Scott that said, here, please help me take all of these people away from me so they aren't asking me all these questions again, because it's human nature to be kind, and to help everybody. But the fact is, if you're not licensed to talk about this stuff, you shouldn't talk about this stuff. Yeah. And I like the friendly aspect of trying to help each other, but it's not really appropriate to do what your friend's doing because you probably don't have the same amount of children. You're probably not the same age, especially in a work environment. So everybody's different, and that's what I want to stress. Everybody's different, and make a plan correct for yourself.
Yeah. And honestly, we've had a ton of referrals from the post office and from our friends. So we're not saying don't listen to your friends about setting an appointment for us. We're saying just let us do the appointment and make sure that if it is the right thing for you of what your friend got, because that's when you sit down with someone, let's say Scott sent you to 3 of the people that work at the post office, you're not going to give all 3 of those people the same exact product in the end because all of their needs are different. And that's whenever you sit down with someone, you're able to tell what those needs are.
Correct.
And if you're talking to Scott, your supervisor at the post office, chances are he doesn't understand stuff either. And when we went in, I remember we cleaned up a lot of stuff that he didn't know all of the ins and outs of stuff. And that's why we always stress, don't cheat yourself. Get a financial advisor.
Yeah, that's the biggest difference. And when we say don't follow your friends, the biggest thing that I've seen over the years is pretty much, like disability policies and things like that. People will buy one because their friend bought one. It's a little bit different from the investment aspect, because if you're saying, hey, talk to this person, he's a financial advisor, well, that's different because a financial advisor is a fiduciary, so we have to do what's right for you. We're not just trying to slam a product down your throat so you're buying that and we're making money. So a little bit different.
And total transparency, guys, that does happen in our industry. There are people out there who will literally sell you anything that you will buy, whether or not it makes sense for you. So unless you are a financial advisor yourself, don't just buy something from someone because you think it's a good idea. You really need to look at the whole picture, because those things build up over time. The amount of money you could be spending on a policy that you don't need builds up over time.
Correct.
Just like people that are paying for FEGLI that don't know it because they haven't looked at their paycheck in 20 years.
Correct.
You know? Yeah. Not taking advantage of money from your employer. So we meet with tons of postal employees. They get, how much is the matching money that federal employees get?
5% in general. I mean, it
5%?
works out to 5%, yeah.
Yeah. And we'll meet with people where they are not doing that 5%. And for us as a company and just wanting to do the right thing for people, I know that you won't even go for a sale unless someone is putting in 5%. They might need life insurance, but getting that 5% already from the TSP is more important than buying the life insurance in most cases, correct?
I've always felt that, yeah. If you're not taking advantage of all the free money, and when you're talking about a $70,000, $80,000 salary, 5% is quite a bit of money to be missing as free money essentially going into your investments and then making gains off of the market. So if you're not doing that, that's the first step with me, get you into that matching money before we're talking about addressing the life insurance issue, because most likely you probably have a group life policy, might not be a great one, so we don't need to talk about an outside policy yet, but you just have to correctly figure out what's right for you.
Yeah. The next topic that we have is not claiming your taxes correctly. We've seen a ton of people that have been married for 20 years and have 5 kids, but they're still claiming single and zero. And they like that because at the end of the year, they're going to get back this huge refund. And everyone knows this. It's always a thing. In January, everyone's excited to get their taxes done so they can get that big refund. But what you're saying is to not do that.
Well, I mean, you should claim appropriately. I mean, essentially, the refund is not really a refund, it's your money, and you're giving it them to hold and them to create interest, versus you could hold it, create interest, and just pay what you have to. So claiming appropriate to me is correct, but I understand the scenario of why people do it. A lot of people will do it because they like that big check coming in because that pays their property taxes, or they have gas fuel and that's paying for the propane or something like that. So there's a plan, and hey, if you have a plan, at least you have a plan and you're trying. But we'll talk about, is that maybe the appropriate plan? Could you do something a little different?
Yeah. So guys, we also, just full transparency, we are not tax experts.
No.
We have a firm that we work with, CGN CPA. If you have questions about your taxes or need a tax professional, give us a call. We can hook you up with some of our friends that are good people that take really good care of our clients.
Correct.
So I know that in the past, you have cheated at a game. What game have you cheated at?
I have never cheated at a game. I know you put this question in. It's not me. I'm not a game cheater.
So, not that I want to call her out, but I do have a friend that I recently played Monopoly with them and their son, and it was so funny because I had to sit back. I couldn't tell the kid that, hey, your parents are both cheating, because they would roll a 6 and then they'd go boop, 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 and just put the thing wherever they wanted to land. So if you're cheating on Monopoly with your kids, don't play Monopoly with me, right? Guys, we're going to see you soon. Have a great day. It's been awesome. We'll see you soon.